So we learned about the constructor functions and the ESX classes. But there's actually third way of implementing prototype inheritance or delegation, as we can also call it. And third way is to use a function called Object.create, which works in a pretty different way than constructor functions and the classes work. Now with the Object.create, there is still the idea of prototype inheritance. However, there are no prototype properties involved, and also no constructor functions and no new operator. So instead, we can use Object.create to essentially manually set the prototype of an object to any other object that we want. So if we can set the prototype to any object, let's actually create an object that we want to be the prototype of all the person objects. So essentially, let's create the person classes from earlier. So let's say person, I'm calling it person proto, which stands for prototype. Because again, this object is gonna be literally the prototype of all the person objects, and this is actually a simple object literal. And so now we put exactly what we put before into the prototype property here. And so that was the CoreH method. So we did that actually here first manually, and so we add the CoreH to prototype property of person, and then here, we also did that, but in a more impressive way. So JavaScript did that for us behind the scenes. But now let's take the function and then put it here. That's actually it. That's all the methods that we want the person objects to inherit. And so we put them in the prototype. And now all we need to do is to actually create person object with this object here as the prototype. And for that, we can use Object.create. So let's create person called Steven here. So let's create person called Steven here and Object.create. And here we passed in the object that we want to be the prototype of the new object. So that's a person proto. And so this will return a brand new object that is linked to the prototype that we passed in here. So Steven here is right now is an empty object, and it will link to this person proto object, which will be its prototype. We can actually see that here in the console. So as I said, for now it's empty. So but we already have the prototype here. And here we have a CoreH. But now we don't have any properties on the object yet. So let's quickly fix that. So Steven.name, Steven.byyear 2002, just like we did in any other object literal. So this is no ID, of course, but we're gonna fix that in a minute because we want actually a programmatic way of creating new objects instead of having to do it like this. But again, for now, we're just worried about the prototypes and the prototype chain here. So we should now be able to say Steven.CoreH. Yeah, that worked. And so you see that we just like before implemented prototype inheritance, but in a completely different way. And now just to make sure that we are all on the same page here. So let's make sure that we really understand this big difference. And so now we can verify everything I just using code here. So we can do Steven dot underscore underscore proto underscore underscore. And so that is now exactly the object that we specify up there. So you see that's exactly person proto, because here we said explicitly that person proto should in fact be the prototype of Steven. And so therefore, of course, it's gonna be true. Indeed, it is. And now we know exactly what's going on here. So let's create another person here. Sarah, Object.create, once again, person proto. But now, in order to set the property on this object, let's do it in a better way than what we did here. So doing this is a little bit weird, and it goes against the spirit of creating objects programmatically. So if we are serious about using Object.create, we should implement a function that it basically does this work for us. So let's create a new method here. And this can have any name. This is a little bit similar to the constructor that we have in the classes. And so this one also get a name. Let's say first name and birth year. And then just like before, we use this property and set first name to first name. And then this dot body set it to body as well. And you see this looks a bit like the constructor function that we created earlier. However, this has actually nothing to do with any constructor function because we are not using the new operator to call this. And here we simply do Sarah.init and then we pass in the arguments. So let's say Sarah and 1979 for example. And so let's then use Sarah.create as well. And so that works. So here, this keyword will also point to the Sarah object now, but it does so because we explicitly call init on Sarah. So again, this has nothing to do with the constructor function that we saw earlier. And it's also completely different from the constructor method that we have in the ESA classes. This is just a manual way of basically initializing the object. This here could be any name. And indeed, we could have a method like this and any other object literally. So essentially, this is how Object.create works.